Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Raghuram Raju. We are doing philosophy, and in the paper Philosophy of Art and Aesthetics, the lesson that we are going to discuss today is Philosophy of Music, written by Dr. Manjula Saxena. Let's start with what is music by asking the question, what does music generate in us? Generally speaking, when we listen to music, music is sweet, music is pleasant. So sweetness and pleasurability are therefore two essential qualities of music. But the question is, are sweetness and pleasure unique to music? Take for instance, chirping of the birds, particularly of koala in an autumn morning, or the sound of brooks beautifully depicted in Tennyson's poem The Brook, where he says that the brook slips between the ridges, the brook flows to join the brimming river, the brook chatters over stony ways, babbles on the pebbles. So the chirping of the birds or the flow of the brook are also sweet and pleasurable. So these sounds and songs coming from nature are not, however, generally associated with music. If they are sometimes associated with music, when you say that the music of the brook or the song of the koel, it is only in a metaphorical sense and not in the literal sense. The reason for not treating the sound of the brook or the song of the koel as music or as a particular art form is these instances have a particular relation with nature. Okay. Koel does not imitate nature. Koel, the bird koel, is a part of nature. Okay. Whereas in music, there is a very important aspect of imitating nature. Now, in imitating nature, in any art form and music in particular, there is a combination of novelty and repetition. Music as an art form does not merely imitate nature. It imitates, but then it also adds in this imitation something which is not there in the original aspect of the nature. So that addition is very important. Understanding that addition is what distinguishes music or any art form from those valuable things in nature, such as koel or the flow of the brook. So with the exception of few child prodigies, art in general and music in particular involves a practice, sometimes a regular and rigorous practice, and in many cases it requires a supervision of an expert. So it has a tradition or it is a part of a parampara. So what distinguishes music from nature is that an art form like music is not only makes itself available for it to be searched and found like the beautiful things in nature, but it involves a human effort of positively contributing to create a special emotion, to heighten an emotion. So, for instance, take the example of religious compositions. The religious compositions inculcate or increase the feeling of devotion or union with the Absolute. The compositions of heroic verses make people feel the idea or the emotion of courage. The songs sung during the festivals, particularly folk festivals, make people participate, and then they also make them happy and cheerful. So, music that does not generate these results is not considered to be a good music. So, music has a very important human element, and there is a rigorous training, and there is a tradition, and there is also a purpose for music of generating agreeable emotions in people. This distinguishing feature of evoking emotion in Indian aesthetics or philosophy of art is called rasa, or something that may be relished. Though rasa is used in food, in relation to food, that food is a very good food, that it has a juice, the rasa, and it involves also a sensuous domain. However, in Indian aesthetics, rasa or in music and arts largely belongs to the non-sensuous domain. So, there is a close relation between rasa and non-sensuousness. Alternatively, rasa is not related in the ultimate analysis with the empirical or the sensuous domain. It is an experience not by any sense organ, but as the German philosopher Kant would put it, it belongs to a reflective taste. This non-sensuousness of music or any art form does not, however, make it a cognitive exercise in dealing with disciplines like mathematics or physics. That is, if rasa is non-sensuous and it is not sensuous, it does not mean it is abstract and is like, what happens in physics and mathematics. It is not abstract, it is not sensuous, and then what it is, we will discuss. To sum up what we have done so far, rasa is non-empirical, at the same time it is not cognitive, it is not abstract, and what it is we will discuss in the following. So, music is not an experience through ordinary sense experience, but by a trained and cultivated sahridaya rasika, or a person having taste refined and emphatic enough to appreciate the abstract emotive content in it. Rasa evoking music is therefore good or even ideal. Thus, rasa, though enjoyable and is pleasing, is not physical. So, it may be defined as the basic dispositional mode of emotion. 1. We are naturally disposed towards some emotional experiences, and 2. That art experience, if and when good, brings this latent emotive tendency in us up to the surface in the form of a original emotion. So, rasa, being emotive mood, relates to the mind, and it can be participated by all at the same time. So, rasa is an idea, it is a concept, though enjoyed by many, is not dependent or equivalent to the enjoyer. So the rasa is a concept independent of enjoyers, though people can enjoy rasa. It is an idea that is not particular and cannot be reducible to particular perceptions. Centuries ago, around 540 BC, the famous Greek philosopher Plato had said that philosophical thinking is different from other kinds of intellectual endeavors, because philosophical thinking concerns itself with the study of concepts or ideas, and it is not about studying objects and particulars. According to Plato, objects and particulars are imperfect copies of these permanent forms. He defines a concept as unchanging common essence of things, on participating in which things becomes what they are. So in Plato, human beings are human beings because they partake in the idea of humanity. Okay, so there is a idea of chair, and the particular chairs partake in the idea of chair, or the particular chairs are carbon copies of the idea of chair. So Plato claims that whereas human beings come and go, the idea of humanity is eternal and unchanging, and Plato concerns himself with the understanding of these concepts. Thus, non-sensuousness is the fulcrum of rasa. The purpose of music is to evoke rasa in the musician as well as the listener. The classical Indian aesthetician Bharata Muni, in his monumental work Natya Sastra, lists at least 9 rasas called Navarasas, and they are very famous in the Indian literature and aesthetics. The Navarasas are devotion, Shanta, beauty and love, Sringara, joy and laughter, Hasya, wonder, Adbhuta, valor, Veera, compassion, Karuna, repulsion, Bhibhatsa, fear, Bhayanaka, and terrible, Raudra. Naturally, Shanta Rasa, Sringara Rasa, Hasya Rasa, Adbhuta Rasa, Veera Rasa makes one happy, as these are all very desirable emotions. But what is unique about rasa experience in Indian aesthetics is that even the so-called undesirable emotions like karuna, pathos, repulsion, bhibhasa, fear, bhayanaka, or terrible, raudra, when experienced in rasa mode as rasa, give delight or happiness and feeling of relief. So beyond a point, there is no difference between desirable emotions and the non-desirable emotions in Indian aesthetics. Both of them supposed to give you the aesthetic experience, aesthetic or rasa experience. Here mind is taken to be tranquil. See, this is the point which is important in Indian aesthetics. They believe that mind by nature is quiet, tranquil, and is in a state of harmony. Okay? Emotions make movement, and in the process disturb the tranquility of mind. The task of art is to bring some kind of tranquility amongst these emotions that by nature give rise to some movement and thereby disturb the mind. To know this better, we need to understand how art in India treats the relation between sthiti and laya, permanence and moment. The best way to understand this is through the Nataraja dance. Nataraja dances in a very complicated and a vibrant manner, but he dances on the Cupid without disturbing the Cupid. So that the laya has to have more predominant aspects of sthiti. The laya is subsumed under the sthiti. So in Indian aesthetics, there is more importance given to sthiti, permanence, and the laya, the moment, has to be organized under the purview of permanence. So the other way of putting this idea is, in Indian aesthetics, permanence is privileged and moment is accepted only under the control of the permanence. Now, this dominant tendency in Indian philosophy gets rejected with the advent of Buddhism, where Buddha gives importance to change and rejects the idea of permanence. That is a larger philosophical idea. We will not go into it here. Let's now come back to our discussion of philosophy of music. Actually, every feeling in its impact is a disturbance. The feeling by its nature is dominated by laya and not by permanence. And this movement, even it is a small movement, can greatly disturb the tranquility of the mind. So it boils over in art creation and art experience, were naturally given as relief and happiness, and make rasa experience of evenly, generally undesirable emotions pleasing. So to come back and relook at what we discussed in this in this section, there is a mind which is in the state of tranquility. All emotions by their very nature are dominated by moment. The job assigned to rasa or art or aesthetics in Indian aesthetics is to bring harmony, to bring organization, to bring tranquility amongst or between different emotions or within an emotion. So Navarasas, though are different, they are very, they perform different kinds of roles, they traverse different kinds of emotional width, but they have something in common. And what is the common? The common element is the fact that each one of them, when experienced in its true nature, give the experiencer some unique kind of pleasure or happiness, or to use Kant, from the point of view of a disinterested delight. So music should and does have the ability to cause a rasa experience, which is actually the transformation of a concept into experience, because the same rasa can be experienced by any number of people at the same time, though in different degrees. So you have something that is common called rasa, and people can experience it in different ways, but the idea of rasa has its own core or fulcrum. And the idea of rasa is not dependent on the rasikas, though rasikas are dependent on or partake in the rasa experience. Now the question arises naturally from this observation is, how can music cause rasa experience? The question is important, as the answer to this will also clarify the basic difference between Indian classical music and the Western music on the one hand, as also the basic similarities between Indian classical and Indian folk music on the other. But answer to and elaboration of this question needs a short introduction to what in Indian scriptures has been held to be the main feature of music in terms of what it has been defined. So let us look at the text from Indian classical literature. There is a definition of music in this book by Sangeeta Ratnakara by Pandit Sarangadev. It is a Sanskrit work. Sarangadev describes music as a composite art form comprising of singing, Gita. The singing is the most important thing, but the singing also includes instrumental music, and the instrumental music further include both string and percussion instruments. And the second definition aspect of music is dance. The definition is found in the 24th sloka of the first chapter of this book, and it reads as follows: Geetam Vadhyam Nityam Cha Prayam Sangeet Muchayate Nityam Vadyanugam Proktam Vadhyam Geetanuvarticha Ato Geetam Pradhanatvad Pradhabidhiyate. Sangeeta Ratnakara gives singing primary importance. The singing of Gita verse takes us to the world of ideas or concepts of truth, beauty and goodness. The technique that is mastered through rigorous training, learning and practice of singing melodious form, ragas, culminate into rasa. The composite music that consists of both vocal and instrumental present two basic musical concepts of raga and tala, or a measured pace of singing, and rhythm, that is the melodic matrix. Rhythm, like melody, also has forms or patterns which arise when a number of beats are interwoven with an aim of creating a formal condition conducive to the emergence of a specific rasa. For example, to rouse the emotion of bhakti or devotion, a few selected musical notes are arranged in an ascending order. You know why? Because the feeling of bhakti is supposed to be an elevating one, and sung it in a soft but steady voice at slow but steady pace. Apart from Gita or singing of melody forms, music or Sangeeta also includes dance or Nityam, which literally means movement of the limbs. Dance is performed to the accompaniment of some or other kind of music. It could be vocal or instrumental. So Gita can be taken as a component of Sangeeta. Sangeeta can be seen as dependent on music, vocal or instrumental. Sarangadev does hint at the supremacy of vocal music or Gita, though he does not give reasons elaborating this claim of supremacy of vocal music or Gita. However, another equally important Indian aesthetician, Bharata Muni, the famous Bharata Muni, in his monumental work Natya Shastra, has categorically assigned the status of the highest form of art to Natya or drama. It thus becomes obligatory for us to decide as to which view is more valid and why. A little philosophical deliberation will help us in accomplishing this task of deciding what is more important. Is it Gita or is it Natya? That is important. Instead of deciding which between dance or music is the highest form, let us bring into this what is the purpose of art forms. The purpose of art form is to generate rasa experience. For Sarangadev, it is singing that accomplishes the rasa experience. On the other hand, for Bharata Muni, it is drama that accomplishes achieving this rasa experience. However, both agree that the purpose of art is rasa experience or the dispositional mode of emotion. So instead of quarreling about which form is more superior and which is not between Gita and Natya, I think it will be fruitful to reflect on, discuss which art form brings us closer to accomplishing rasa experience, and leave that as an open issue for people to decide. In this context, we can point out that singing is less dependent on the external support, whereas instrumental music and dance have to depend largely on many things which are external to that art form. That a dancer has to depend upon the singer, the instrumentalist, and other things. Similarly, the instrumental music cannot just, you can't play it, you need an instrument. Now here let me bring this instance from Carnatic music, about music. There was a competition in the court where Shyama Sastri was employed. The dispute was about who is a better singer. So Shyama Sastri on the one hand and his opponent another were competing with each other, and they were excelling each other, and it was very difficult to decide who is a better singer. And the judge then put this condition to eliminate the loser from and then choose the winner. And he says that now you should sing this kriti with a minimum. Now you should sing this kriti with a minimum movement. And then Shyama Sastri wins the duel because he sings it with minimum movement, whereas his opponent has to, bend his head and shake his limbs and things like that. So now you have this thing that music has to be less dependent on the rest of it, and in this context you find that singing Gita is less dependent on external things than the dance. Thus, music is self-dependent and self-complete. In scriptures like Sangeeta Ratnakara and Samavada, therefore, only singing or Gita is held to be equivalent to a path of God realization, and a practice of such disciplining training in singing has been named Nada Sadhana, that is, the purposive discipline of one's voice with the aim of attaining the ultimate reality in its sound aspects. Devoted followers of this path are convinced that the ultimate reality, or Brahman, being all-pervading or omnipresent, is very much there in sound too and in singing. Being self-dependent like Brahman, it is an ideal path to realize this sound God or Nada Brahma. A very interesting story illustrates how music is related to the realization of Brahman. It is said that the great Indian Rishi Muni Yajnavalkya had two wives, Gargi and Maitreyi, and both Gargi and Maitreyi desired to attain moksha. However, of the two, only Maitreyi needed the Muni's help in realizing the goal, as Gargi herself, a consummate veena player, could attain it on her own. So to sum up, the ultimate purpose of music for the classical Indian scholars is realizing Brahman, which is an ultimate reality, who is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. In fact, music is identified with Nada Brahma. So the ultimate reality, though perfect, is amenable for different interpretations like the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, that is, the creator, the preserver and the destroyer of the world respectively. Human beings who are individual selves too possess these attributes, but only in an imperfect measure. They can realize this ultimate form through music. This formal flexibility of the concept of God allows musicians to conceive of him as a primal sound uncaused first cause, or the original sound source of all other sounds pervading space or akasha. Now, as original sound or as Nada Brahma, this ultimate reality must reveal itself to man in and through a form which man can willingly and easily worship, and which still is not opposed to or radically different from Brahman itself. Ancient Indian scriptures claim that Nada Brahma chooses to reveal itself to man as a conjunction of three sounds, each of which, again like Brahman, is totally self-sufficient and self-dependent. This primal revelation of Nada Brahma is the word Om, written and pronounced as a conjunction sandhi of three equally self-dependent sounds of A, U and Here we observe that the components of Om have been held to be as self-sufficient as Nada Brahma itself. The first two sounds of the word A, U, or in question, or the first two sounds of the word A, U, or vowels. The third one, Mu, is a consonant. Indian grammarian Patanjali says the vowels or swaras or vanjanas can be vocalized without any help from any of the consonants. Such is not the case with consonants, which to be pronounced must be associated with at least one vowel. The consonant M in music needs the vowel U, and the consonant N in Nada Brahma needs the vowel A in order to be pronounced as a meaningful composite sound. Vowels, however, do not need such help and are actually independent and self-sufficient, in addition to being critical helpers of consonants. The Om sound, being largely a harmonious conjunction of two vowels and only one consonant, can be held to be the fittest manifestation of Nada Brahma, as in this word even the consonant, that is M, is pronounced in its original unexpanded, unelongated form just as a closing point. No sound in this word gets vitiated. All retain their original purity, and so the word is considered the sole manifestation of Nada Brahma. This is the reason why musical rendering in classical form with a melodious chanting of the sound Om. Of course, this is not the practice in Western music, nor even in the light music of India, but this is so because in neither of these forms is music treated as a way to realize God. It is a means of entertainment and relaxation, ranjakam, and not liberating, muktidayakam. Whereas in Indian tradition, music has been held to be not so much a source of entertainment but as a means to liberation. Muktidayakam natu ranjakam, therefore, is the typically Indian description of the nature of music, where, like every other endeavor of man, music has also been held to be a pursuit of the ultimate reality. Though some of the Western aestheticians, like their Indian counterparts, hold the idea of relishing or savoring music in the sense of rasa experience, for them the purpose of music is not liberation or moksha. Well, there is this difference between Western and classical Indian music with regard to liberation, but Western music of the symphonies or other classical orchestral compositions of composers like Mozart and Beethoven and operas are not sensuous but aim for pure non-sensuous aesthetic experience. This non-sensuous idea has an interesting melodic form which is so pure as it does not have even words, but excellence of order, tonal harmony, contrast, all sounds uniting purposively to enhance the significance of the whole composition. It is so pure that it does not allow words as a meaning or bhava can distract from the purity. This is closer to Platonic forms and Kantian sense of being intelligible. We can trace the legacy of this form of music to Plato, who in his dialogue Philebus speaks of the intrinsic appeal of geometrical design. This has in modern times been adopted as cubism by those like Gris, Bagné, Ozenfant, Picasso and Kandinsky, who are well-known practitioners of cubism. According to Susan Langer, a large number of Western aestheticians hold that the essential function of art, including music, is to meet the canons of composition, such as unity in diversity. The absence or lack of this mode made those like Herbert Reed to deny pyramids the status of architectural works. Others like Dewey and Roser-Frey argue that art owes its unique significance to its ability to exalt and prolong our perceptual experience of things or of their form. Clive Bell sums all this up by describing music as a contemplation of pure form which leads to a state of extraordinary exaltation and complete detachment from the concerns of life. So, what we have done in this module is to look at the definition of music and also identify various aspects of music, particularly the crucial idea of music, namely the rasa experience. We have traced the genealogy of music to the classical texts and then identified how music is related to verse, that is Gita, and to Natya, that is a play. And then we have looked at the various aspects of these rasa experiences, their diversity and their commonalities, and we also made comparison with other schools such as the Western musical system and the modern Indian practices of music. Thank you.